Thanks for joining us again for this 169th episode of the Clive Barker Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the imagination of Clive Barker. In this episode, Jose, Rob, and I cover Clive Barker and Hellraiser news and kick off the voting for our third annual Duels of Blood competition, all Hellraiser, all Cenobites. One quick correction, I had the wrong picture for Hellraiser Judgement's Pinhead. Instead, I had the picture for Revelations Pinhead. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I was finishing those up. I kept dozing off while I was trying to do it. Anyway, we figured it out a little ways down, but, you know, if you're following along on Duels of Blood while we talked about them, I could see why that would be confusing because I fixed it before it actually went live. So anyway, this episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram Celebrate Imagination Shop is dedicated to benefiting the arts and medicine program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. Up to the 50% of the proceeds support the program where artist Don Bertram volunteers monthly. So please join us in donating to the program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's a link in the show notes and on the main website at clivebarkercast.com that will take you where you need to go to get one of his prints or art books and help out this wonderful program. Thank you, Don Bertram, for your support. All right, well, thanks again for joining us. This is episode 169. This will be a news episode, and we're also going to be starting up again the Duels of Blood.
Yeah, Duels of Blood. This time it's all Cenobites, all Hellraiser, all the time. Yep. No brackets.
Yeah. And Jose and I stayed up late getting this website ready, so it's ready to go. All the as we're recording this, all the polls
characters
are in. But they won't pop up until 8 a.m. Alaska time on Sunday. So
we've included everything, right? We've included everything but the kitchen sink in this one.
Yeah, I mean,
and did a great job on this.
At first, I was nervous that we wouldn't be able to find 64 Cenobites. That's a tough challenge, but we did it. I had some help from people in the Hellbound web Facebook page. And actually, Mark Adams named a bunch of them, and
cool.
I think mostly like Marvel comic characters ones.
So we opened it up to not just the movies, but the comic books and the Paul Kane's Sherlock Holmes and the Servants of Hell.
Yeah.
And what else? All the movies, of course, including Hellraiser Judgement.
Yeah.
And comic books like and Hellraiser Anthology Volume 1 and 2, I think, and the Marvel comic books. I don't think we have any here. Do we have any from the Boom Studios comic books?
Yeah, we do. We have the alternate Pinheads.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, we do. Yeah.
I mean, I thought about going deeper in and finding the the alternate Hell, characters, but. We were getting towards the end, and it's like it would have been taking me so long to dig through the comics and try to find their names. And then sometimes you do all that and you find out they don't have names.
So as it turns out, there are way more than 64 Cenobites.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. We'll be getting through some of those Marvel Hellraiser comics in the future episodes of the podcast. So I'm sure we'll come up with at least another dozen of those.
Yeah, and we'll start with the news, and then we'll get into the matchups, and this episode will air at the same time as the Duels of Blood voting opens. So if you're listening to this, you can go ahead and get started voting. But in the news, first of all, I think this was kind of a neat thing that popped up. So we know that Doug Bradley has a really good voice for audiobooks. He's proven it with a few projects that he's done. Right? He did Tonight
Mr. Be Gone.
And Mr. Be Gone was the
Tonight Again,
first one, yeah. And those were really good. It was surprising because you think he's just going to sound like Pinhead, but he doesn't. You kind of forget that he's a really good classically trained, stage actor.
Right.
And so now he's going to be doing the audio production of Barbie Wilde's Venus Complex, which we've talked about that book a few times here on this podcast and with Barbie Wilde back when the book came out. Gosh, what was that, like 3-4 years ago?
Oh, wow. Let me check. The Venus Complex. I know I read it in 2013, so it's been more than that.
Well, I think we read it right when it came out because she gave us advance copies.
Yes, that's true. So here it is. The book came out in November 1st, 2012.
Wow. Okay.
From Comet Press.
Read that one.
Yep. So there we go. It came out in November 1st, 2012, and from Comet Press. And it's about a man that rises out of an abyss of frustration and rage and creates works of art out of destruction, goddesses out of mere dental hygienists, and beauty out of death. It's also about the sickness and obsession that is love. So that's a synopsis.
Yeah, it's really kind of uncomfortable but interesting to read because it sort of traps you in the mind of this serial killer that you don't want to sympathize with him. You want him to get caught.
Right. Yeah. And Fangoria magazine on issue 320 told Wilde is one of the finest purveyors of erotically charged horror fiction around. So that's high praise right there.
Yeah. Voice of the Damned was good too. That's the one I've read.
Yeah.
It had that kind of erotic, mix of nice erotica and horror.
Yeah,
for sure. To the short stories.
Kind of splatterpunky a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the stories had to do with like what was it? What was
polyp?
it? A polyp.
Yeah.
That grew into a large creature.
Yeah.
That was one of the.
Went on a
I got under my skin pretty bad.
Yeah.
So like, if you ever have a colonoscopy, I think I'll probably think of that story.
Yeah.
That reminded me a little bit of the story from the Books of Blood called Son of Celluloid, where
like
a man called Barbario has a cancer and then he dies and the cancer continues living on. And it's a strange story, but Polyp was pretty funny. I like that. I like Barbie Wilde's Venus Complex novel. It's a great novel. And then she's also excelled in short stories. And of course her Sister Celise trilogy, where she talks about the backstory behind her female Cenobite and her role in hell and her role in trying to take over hell and all that. So good stuff. So it's going to be read by Doug Bradley, and there's going to be an audiobook coming out soon.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I think I want to hear it from his voice.
They didn't have any pre-orders for that up yet, though. I didn't see a pre-order when I made that post, so I'll have to keep an eye on that, and I'll.
Yeah, I think it was mainly just an announcement from Doug Bradley's Facebook page, and then I think later it's been announced, from other sources too.
Right. So stay tuned for that one.
Yeah, that is cool. And then speaking of audio productions, the Hellbound Heart audio production by Paul Kane and Company is available now for sale.
That's true. Yeah. So, Rob, you mentioned a couple of months ago that the audio play production of the Hellbound Heart was going to be made by Bafflegab Productions, and I think it's now available for pre-order on their official site.
Yeah, so it's going to be. You can either get a compact disc or a digital album. There's a trailer on there's like a trailer on there you can go listen to on the official site, and it sounds really cool. The guy doing the voice of Frank sounds a little bit like Oliver Smith.
Oh, that's
not Oliver Smith. Is it Oliver Smith? Or that's good name's wrong.
Oliver Smith played Frank the Monster. Oliver Parker played Pelican and the Movie Man.
Oliver Smith.
And then Sean Chapman played Frank Cotton.
Yeah. And Andrew Robinson played Frank with Larry's skin.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So that character had a lot of people playing the same character, right?
Yeah. Plus the dubbed over voice.
Yes, that's true. So the cast includes Alice Lowe as Kirsty, Tom Meaton as Rory /Frank, and Neve McIntosh plays Julia. And the play also has a cameo by our very own chatterer, Nightbreed and Hellraiser alumni Nicholas Vince. So he's going to be in there. Yeah, that is pretty cool.
That'd be cool. I wonder if he'll show up as one of the, I guess.
One of the Cenobites.
That'd be cool if he showed up as, I wonder if he's Pinhead. That'd be pretty cool.
that'd be awesome.
And if anybody's ever followed along with the Clive Barker audiobook when you're doing when you're listening to it, it's abridged. So there are some small sections that, I guess for time, because it was on the cassettes, that were cut out, which is a little bit, unfortunate. It's a really good production. I think everybody should have it, but I imagine this one won't be abridged. So this, it's got that advantage. Plus, it's a full-blown audio production, with a cast, which is also really cool.
Right. So go check out our blog post about it that Rob made, and he has a link there to the shop of bafflegab.co.uk, and you can listen to the little book trailer there. And here it is. The pre-order of the compact disc is 11.99 Great Britain pounds, and you can also buy the digital album, which includes streaming and download, for 8.99 Great Britain pounds. So I don't know exactly how much that translates into dollars, but I'm sure you'll find out as soon as you order.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the cover is really amazing too.
Yeah, I like it.
The cover for this. It's a red background with like this Pinhead Cenobites that kind of looks like this skinny character, kind of an androgynous character with these ribbons flying out of his suit, and he's holding like a levitating box in between his hands, and that's pretty amazing. I love this stuff. This is great. I'm going to order it today.
And speaking of Hellraiser, Nicholas Vince, as we're talking about this, Nicholas Vince is on his way over to a screening of Hellraiser, a 35mm screening at the Shelley Theatre in UK. And, we won't make a really big deal about this because by the time that this episode airs, it will be Sunday, and the screening will have already happened Saturday night.
Sure, but luckily Rob posted about this on March 7th, so I hope that got through to some people and that they're going to go see it.
Yeah, so March 10th, 7:45 p.m. At the the Shelley Theatre.
Yeah.
Shelby Theatre in Bournemouth, England.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a 35.
It's the Shelley Theatre. I put Shelby, but that's my.
Okay.
Or that was an error. I'll fix that. My bad.
Oh.
Yeah, Shelley Theatre.
It says
Shelley Theatre.
Oh, is it okay? It says Shelley in the title and in the body. It says Shelley.
I messed up. That was my fault.
I think it is Shelley because that's what I remember.
Yeah.
Like Percy Shelley.
Yeah, you got it right in the title.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a 35mm screening, which is needless to say, it's something that doesn't happen anymore very frequently at all. I mean, every movie now is just put on a digital hard drive that people just stick into a machine and it gets projected. So 35mm still has all that lovely grain and the look of the film and all that. So go check it out because that's the way that it's the best way to watch Hellraiser, really. It's a 35mm projection.
Yes. And then more, I guess today's Hellraiser Day, because more Hellraiser news. I like to think that he was inspired by us, but Gary Tunnicliffe made a recorded audio commentary for Hellraiser Judgement. And Rob, you found this news and made a blog post about it, which I don't think I saw posted anywhere else.
I have a subscribe to those Midnight's Edge, their channel, and they had just made a post of it yesterday, and I listened to it right before I went to school yesterday. It was nice, a nice, fast, brisk commentary with some really nice, anecdotes that cool. I'd highly recommend listening to it.
I've listened to a couple of episodes of Midnight's Edge before. I'm not that familiar with the podcast, but I didn't know that they make commentary tracks. And looking around, it seems like this is one of their first commentary tracks. So yeah, maybe Gary got inspired to make this from listening to our commentary track, which he did, right? He did listen to our commentary track, and he got back to you, right, Rob?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And we posted his comments on the blog post for our commentary. If anybody wants to go back and read those, we can put a link to it.
Right. And I'm looking at the comments on YouTube for the Midnight's Edge channel video, and some people here, some names that I kind of recognize, like Jonathan Molondo. I think he might be one of our listeners. He says, Hellraiser as a franchise has been brutalized by Miramax. They have no idea what to do with Clive Barker's work. That's very true, Jonathan. Very true.
Yeah, and it's the feedback, now that we're a couple of weeks in with this movie, the feedback has been all over the place. There are some people that love it, and some people that are kind of like, there are some good parts, and there are some parts I don't like. And then there are some people that are just completely I think out of proportion, just totally trashing the movie.
Yeah. It's very divided. It is very divided. And there's people who, I think there's either you either liked it or you absolutely hated it. And I don't think I've seen anybody saying that they love the movie. I've seen people say, hey, it was pretty decent. It was solid. I liked it. It was good. I liked it. And then there's people who made this movie should be dragged out in the street and shot, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, it's not that bad. I mean, obviously taste is subjective, but it's like, I didn't think I've mentioned this before. I was a big Hellraiser fan for a long time. And then I kind of just got out of it for a while because I was like, I saw Hellraiser 6, 7, 8, 9, and I was like, oh man. It started becoming it was almost like the Transformer franchise, where I was a big Transformer fan, and now for years and years I was an enormous Transformers fan. And then those movies came out, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you start getting a little embarrassed that you were a Transformers fan, and you're like, I think I'm gonna kind of
and you're like,
stop
no,
talking
that doesn't
about
count. That's not real Transformers or whatever.
Right, but for all intents and purposes, that's what Transformers is now. It's the Michael Bay movies and stuff.
But so I love that '85 animated movie.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I have it on DVD. It's great. Yeah. It's a great movie. But it was the same feeling I was having with Hellraiser. And at one point I just thought, you know what, I give up. Because Clive Barker kind of gave up on Hellraiser, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he way back in like 2008 or something, I think Clive Barker was done with Hellraiser. And they were going to remake it, then they were going to reboot it, then they didn't, then they tried doing it again, and then Harvey Weinstein went over to...
Or Bob, right?
Bob Weinstein went over to talk to Clive a few years ago, and then you remember when we did those Duels of Blood Volume 1, I think.
Yeah.
We were discussing those treatments that were on the Weinstein desk.
Yes, and they were all terrible.
God. They got worse as we kept proceedingly going down each treatment. I mean, it was like they were out topping themselves with how shitty they were.
They were so bad. I couldn't even believe people got paid to write those things. I was like, dude, I could have made like a better Hellraiser idea.
And
you did.
They were paid
you
a
wrote
lot. You could buy a house for what people got paid for those movies.
I know.
Those scripts.
So that's when I finally said, you know what, I'm done with Hellraiser. And then, they were going to remake it, then they didn't. And then it's like, oh, there's another movie that's going to be made, and it's going to be made next month, and it's going to come out soon, and it's going to be written and directed by Gary Tunnicliffe. And I was like, okay, well, we were kind of making fun of it. We were kind of skeptical. We said, well, we'll wait and see. And then I saw it, and I was okay with it, But like you said, it's been all over the place. And I think a lot of it's just people who... you're never going to be happy with a Hellraiser movie from now on. You're never going to be happy with it because a couple of reasons. One of them is I don't think Doug Bradley is going to come back for any more Hellraisers. I honestly don't believe that.
Yeah.
And for obvious reasons, like, okay, Doug Bradley is getting kind of older, and I know he still played Pinhead in the Pinhead Experience, the Hellraiser Experience, was that called?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, Pinhead Experience.
And he looked great, of course. He looked great, and he was still, fans loved it. But it's like, I think that's what he's going to do now. I don't see Doug Bradley going back to becoming Pinhead in front of the camera because I think he's done with it. I don't think that he's going to get any scripts that are going to be good enough for him to get back to Pinhead.
You know,
I just don't believe.
One part of the anger about this is like people see it as like sort of a substitution, right? That
right.
It should have been Clive Barker. It should have been Doug Bradley. You know what happened, and it's kind of like, in my eye, the Clive Barker movie wasn't going to happen. Either they just decided they were going to be too cheap, and they weren't going to go with Clive Barker's idea. I mean,
right.
they just sat on it, and they didn't call him back, and time goes by, and then they ran out of time, and they had to make something. And then also, Doug Bradley already turned this movie down. He said, so they weren't, Paul Taylor and Doug Bradley weren't competing for the same part. So everybody's saying,
right.
well, he's no Doug Bradley, and Paul Taylor complained about that a little bit on his Facebook page. He's like, yeah, of course I'm not Doug Bradley. Like, duh.
Yeah,
well, Gary,
I think I saw that post, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Gary did try to offer it to Doug, but it's just like the whole NDA, and I guess, I don't know, the disillusionment about the Hellraiser franchise, probably Doug was being a little skeptical about it, and he didn't want to be a part of it. But, so Clive Barker is not going to direct any Hellraiser movies. Clive Barker may not even direct any movie at all in the future. I mean, you have to accept that Clive Barker has serious, health issues, and he's kind of home-ridden most of the time. There was a period of like 2 years when he got out of the house, like, 3 times?
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, people still think of Clive Barker sometimes as the guy in the black and white picture on the back of their Weave World book. That's not who Clive Barker is anymore. I mean, you have to think that Clive is a man who produces art in the throes of and in bouts of creativity, right? And sometimes he forgets about taking care of himself and all that, and he just, he paid the price for that. He became, he got sick, and of course he had the coma in like 2012. I want to say was it? Yeah,
that's right.
And all that, and he had strokes and all that stuff. So he's not the man that you think he is. He's got in the bouts of a depression in the mid-90s that he really had to crawl his way out of, and he keeps falling back every once in a while. So it's a complicated artist. He's a complicated artist, and I don't think that he's going to direct anything anytime soon.
No, and no one was ever saying he was going to direct. I mean, other than fans, nobody's really been. I mean, there's been no news that he was going to direct this movie. I mean, he was going to write probably a treatment. I mean, it's possible maybe write the whole script, but it could have just been only a treatment and then finished by a screenwriter. Right,
and get maybe an executive producer credit, which doesn't really mean a lot. It just means that they give you a check and they put your name in the movie.
Yeah.
And as for Doug Bradley, I mean, I'm honestly, I'm not done with seeing Doug Bradley play Pinhead myself, but it's been two movies in the Hellraiser franchise that have been done without Doug Bradley now, and I don't think he's coming back.
When was the last time he actually put on the makeup in a movie? I mean, those movies for Deader and Hellworld
was Hellworld,
made,
right?
Yeah, but when were they? 2008, right? No,
maybe even earlier.
No, it's not.
But
right.
they were released like a
2003, I think, was Hellworld, wasn't it?
That's when it was made, and then they released it like. Yeah, they were released. They were
released like almost 2 years later.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I don't think he's been an actual Pinhead, or a Hellraiser or a Hellraiser.
Hellworld was released in 2005.
Okay.
So it's been 13 years since Hellworld was released, and probably 14 or 15 years since he was last Pinhead. Donned the makeup. So it's been a while.
The last hope for Hellraiser really is that the Weinstein Company. I mean, they failed to negotiate a buyout, and now they are in bankruptcy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I'd read, and so So all of their stuff is going to get parceled out, and that includes their intellectual properties like Hellraiser. I mean, we don't know where it's going to go, and like David had said, he had hoped that it would go to like Blumhouse. We'll see. We don't know. I mean, Hellraiser's up in the air. It could come to nothing. Maybe another Hellraiser movie will never get made.
I don't know. I think at this point, my personal opinion is that Hellraiser is kind of saturated, and I don't think fans will ever get happy at another Hellraiser movie because it's always going to be, if it doesn't have Doug Bradley and it doesn't have Clive Barker, people are always going to think of it as like what I've seen some people mention, that Hellraiser Judgment is more like a fan film. Well, that's probably what people are going to think of any future Hellraisers that are going to come, because it's not going to. I mean, Hellraiser is the Hellraiser with Clive Barker. That's, for me, that's the apex of it. That's the high point of the series, was the actual original movie, and maybe the second one and possibly the third and fourth. I cut off at the fourth, but for some people it's just Hellraiser 1 and 2, and I agree with them because those were the best. And after that, it was kind of a downhill, especially when Peter Atkins left the series. Peter Atkins was one of the pillars of Hellraiser, and he was like an amazing screenplay writer, and he actually like built up the character of Pinhead to be the eloquent, Black Pope that we all know. So once those three names are out, that's it.
He made him the icon.
And he was the last person that gave a rip about what Clive Barker's idea was for Hellraiser. Everybody else is like, no, I understand hell and heaven and stuff. I'm good.
Yeah. Agreed. So I don't know, guys. I don't think a lot of fans out there are ever going to be happy with any future Hellraisers anymore. So just, anyway.
It's like I guess they own Children of the Corn too, right? And they made all these god-awful. I mean, it's not like the first movie was that great to begin with, in my opinion. But they made all these god-awful sequels, and nobody's going to be clamoring for a Children of the Corn remake or whatever. And like, okay, let's make it right, and let's, I don't know. But Hellraiser's better than Children of the Corn.
Yes.
So I don't, I think maybe if some time goes by, people will want, whatever happened to Hellraiser, how about maybe they'll want the remake to come back. I mean, there was definitely enough talking about the remake.
Pick up the Scarlet Gospels. Try to work from that. Try to give it some sort of closure. Yeah.
That's what I would love to see that. I think that would be a good bookend for this, sort of crazy series.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it'd be cool to see somehow, if they were going to make more movies, have Tony Randall and Peter Atkins come back and do maybe one more movie. Because they've done Hellbound. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
And
I rather look to the future. I'm tired of going back to the past and try to reinvent the wheel. I'm tired of just people trying to go back and like milk the same idea over and over. Clive Barker has so many books, do The Great and Secret Show, do The Thief of Always, do Weave World, there's so much stuff that they could do. It's like, no, it's Hellraiser is the cash cow. Hellraiser is the cash cow. It's like, let's go back to Hellraiser. Let's make some guy see some weird shit, and then he's gonna open a box and meet Pinhead at the end, and everything's gonna be tied up in a neat bow, and then that's it. That's another Hellraiser movie. Slap it on the cover, put it out, boom. Like, I wish
I do agree with you on that. I'm getting tired of I was thinking I'm getting kind of worn down by some of these comic book movies. After I saw Black Panther, I'd like to see some movies from how in the 80s and the early 90s we had stories Sleepwalkers and People Under the Stairs, and at least companies took chance with stories that were original ideas.
Yeah,
I think it's time to go back to that and start taking chances with some of these. But like you were saying, Jose, let's get some Clive Barker stuff out there. I mean, it's just a lot of his stuff has never really a lot of his work has never been properly, introduced to the mainstream, audience.
Right.
His other work.
And it's true. A lot of our news is about, rumors of things that are in the works that, may never. There's a good chance that they may never happen. I mean, like Weave World and the Great and Secret Show television series. We haven't had any good news on those in 4 years.
Yeah, what was the Weave World TV series where that whole thing was about a chef, it had nothing to do with the actual story. That would have been, if they actually try to do an adaptation of something as work, they end up completely changing to something else that it's not.
And there was a mansion that had a portal to another world.
Yeah,
and they had to close the portal before monsters came out or something.
Yeah, it was like a computer designer and a chef.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with it.
And a pastry chef.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the people from Clive Barker told us that was done without their knowledge, and they didn't really like that at all.
They kind of I think they made it sound like they kind of clamped down on it, but then we never heard anything again after that. So
yeah. Anyway, so. Yeah, I understand that, Rob. I mean, I keep looking at stuff from the 90s, and I look at those movies, and I'm like, you know what? How did they ever come up with the idea to adapt this and make it work? And it's like so many movies out there that were taking risks, and they got their little cult following, and they got to be even profitable in most cases, and do Next Testament or something like that.
Yeah.
Which takes us to the next item on the news, which is Terror Time Shop by Tom Holland, the guy who directed The Langoliers, which I saw recently. I mean, they made that movie. That movie's fine. That movie made money. Yeah. And you look at The Langoliers and you're like, okay, well, the monsters at the end look a little crazy, but fine. So anyway, then Tom Holland's shop Terror Time has a Next Testament by Mark Allen Miller signed gift edition, right?
Yeah.
And I think by the time that you posted this article, by now it's already out of stock. So I just opened it up.
Sorry. I was going to say,
what? I posted this morning, right before
I clicked on it. Yeah. It's already sold out.
It wasn't. Yeah. Geez, an hour ago it wasn't.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. I had an email notification from Terror Time in my email this morning. I'm like, I wonder if they have any Clive Barker stuff. So so then I posted. I mean, we don't even have a blog post. It was just a link to from that email.
But let me check if they still have any Cabal cuts. Because
and that was, and then they also had an ad for the Horror Marketplace. So I checked, so that I saw that was advertised in there, and it said in stock.
Yeah, there are.
And I don't think they have
right? 49 pounds.
But they only ship to the UK. They don't Terror Time. Yeah. I mean, the Horror Marketplace doesn't ship to the US.
So I'm looking at Tom Holland's Terror Time, and they also seem to not have any Cabal cuts anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if they ever did. I mean, I think that those might have ended up at the Horror Marketplace instead.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, so sorry about that, but keep checking Tom Holland's Terror Time shop, and I'm sure you'll still find a few things now and then. I mean, you probably have to check it daily because you never know when stuff's going to pop up.
And it's in short supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then... Oh, and Jose, you just added this one too, and I had forgotten this when it got added on there, but... Clive Barker was participating in the Folsom Street, is it called the Folsom Street Fair?
Yeah. So Folsom Street Events announced on March 6th that they're proud to announce that the 2018 Folsom Street Fair will feature original images by writer, film director, painter, and photographer Clive Barker. So, if you're familiar with the Folsom Street Fair in San Francisco, the leather event where people show up. It's a queer friendly event, or I should probably say it's a queer event that people show up and celebrate their queerness by dressing up in leather and just parading. And I'm sure there'll be images by Clive Barker, mostly some of his erotic photography, nudes and stuff. So it'll be available. I remember seeing Johnny Raymond, Clive's partner, talking about this a couple months ago, saying that they were setting up something for the Folsom Street Fair. And finally, it's announced. So there it is. Go check out the post or in the show notes, and you'll find a link to the event.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to Duels of Blood Volume 3. And this is Hellraiser Judgement has come out, and we decided to go all Hellraiser. I think last year we might have been a little bit too much of deep cuts. As far as
got deep into the universe of Clive Barker.
Yeah, there were a lot of book characters and things like that. But this year we're going all Hellraiser Cenobites. So if you go over to www.duelsofblood.com, DUELSOFBLOOD, that you can vote for these characters, and we randomized the who's up against who, so there's no complaining about like, you know, the one time we had put the Chatterer up against Pinhead at the start, which I think Nicholas Vince didn't really like that very much. And but this year we completely randomized we used a randomizer website, and
a random randomizer, huh?
Yes. Did I say random? I think I just stuttered.
I'm just joking with you. So yeah, you got some interesting matchups here. You got Balbarith versus the Karate Cowboys, for example, which is funny.
Right, that's our first one. So the Karate Cowboys we made fun of is probably one of the worst things about Hellraiser Inferno.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Balbarith is the librarian, right, for Hell in the Marvel comics.
Yeah, this picture that we put up, it's kind of a weird picture because she's wearing a nun outfit, but usually she doesn't. She has like this big bun on the back of her head, and her glasses, they're not opaque. You can actually see their big eyes behind them, and they're just kind of stitched to the face. I didn't like
this picture either, but it was the best one they had in Google Images at the time.
Okay.
But yeah, that's not. I remember her more from like. I remember her more from the Jihad comics, looking more like kind of a small little, you know, librarian with huge glasses.
Yeah. They're kind of stuck to her face, like the lenses are actually stuck into her face.
Yeah.
So you got some interesting things here. I mean, do you want to go through all of them, or just some of the most?
Go through all of them.
Okay.
And then we've got Shenard versus CD. So actually, CD made a pretty good showing the first year when we did this, but I'm thinking he's probably going to get beaten by Shenard.
Oh yeah, absolutely, sure. There's some cool comic Cenobites like Face.
Yeah, Face
was one of my favorite in the Marvel comics. He had a really cool opening story where he played like this. He was like an actor, right? And then he decided to start pushing up his performances by changing his face, much like Lon Chaney did, Senior. And then one time he discovered he made a deal with the devil or with a Cenobite that he could take people's faces and use them as masks. And then his performances became much more incredible until finally, of course, he had to pay the price. So now he lives in hell and he has this weird skin mask stapled to his face.
Very Faustian, I guess. And then and he's up against Kirsty Pinhead from the Boom comics.
Very strong opponent there.
Yeah. And then this one is not fair at all, but remember that it was random. We've got Chalkis, the owl lady from that was in the she was chained to Alastor in the Jihad comics versus Pinhead.
Sorry, Chalkis.
Yeah.
That's going to be a wash.
Yeah, it was nice knowing you. And then Skinless Julia from Hellbound versus Barbie, the flame-throwing Peter Atkins from Hellraiser 3.
And the hellish bartender.
Yeah, with barbed wire on his face.
I like this makeup. I think this makeup is pretty cool. It's one of the good Cenobite designs from Hellraiser 3.
And this one, I don't know where this is gonna go because they're both characters that aren't like people's favorites, I guess. But you got Yama Vidatu. She was one of Alastor's
posse.
From Jihad comics versus the Assessor in Judgment, which is he's the guy that eats the sins.
I'm curious to see how the Judgment characters are going to fare in this.
I am too.
Duels of Blood. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. There's people that's like we were saying before. There are people that absolutely hate them, and then there are some people that like those characters too. And then this one will be the real way to tell. I guess we've got the Surgeon up against Angelique, so a new Cenobite character versus a classic,
an old one. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure I'm going to vote for Angelique for this one. I'm sorry, probably. Surgeon, but you can't beat this great iconic makeup with Valentina Vargas.
And this one we had to do a little digging, but remember the story in Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2 with the I Just Work Here story. It was the opening story for Volume 2. This character, this little demon guy that had to go around mopping up the blood, and he'd bring the big blood tick thing over to the giant demon and throw it in its mouth. And so we asked Ben Mears, the writer for that comic, what is this guy's name? And he said, well, in the he said in their script, his name was Isaac.
There you go.
So we got his name just for this, revealed here for the first time. But yeah,
there you go, little Isaac.
Isaac versus Merkova, which is a Cenobite from the Marvel comics that I don't really know much about this one, but she's got like a dog skull stuck on her face.
Is Merkova like... I haven't read these comics in a while, but wasn't Merkova like Pinhead's partner or something?
Oh, I don't know.
I thought it was.
Well, yeah. In our next episode, we're going to start diving into the Hellraiser comics, the Marvel ones. So we'll know more about these as we go along.
Yeah, she has a skeletal horse snout stitched onto her face. And she got killed in the Harrower story in the Marvel comics. Oh. And yeah, she was Pinhead's girlfriend, I guess you would say. But wow. Yeah, cool. The cat that she's holding in the picture, that's actually Zinc, the little pet cat of the Harrowers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's the one that one of the Harrowers could see through the eyes of Zinc. You remember that?
I kind of do, yeah. And we did episodes on the Harrowers, but now I'm my
that's true.
Foggy on it.
I like that character. She's a cool character. A good character.
I think Isaac is a good one too. That's going to be a tough matchup. I like him.
I don't think so at all.
No.
No. And then we have the sculptress, right? She's from that story of this guy that's stuck in hell, and he's really enjoying his stay in hell. He's fallen in love with a Cenobite, but then, he thinks he's developing this relationship with a Cenobite, but then it turns out that she does torture everyone else just like she tortures him.
Yeah.
What's the name of the story? With her lips. Or something like that.
That's kind of like that trope of somebody falling in love with a prostitute, only to think that to learn that it's all just an act and everybody gets.
Yeah, it's like she tortures him every day and he falls in love with her, and then she does the ultimate thing that hurts him the most, which is she takes his lips off and puts them on another guy and then kisses him instead of.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a short story, but it's really great. It's like she hurt him more than she ever did by cutting off most of his body. So she's going up against Eshma Deva.
Yeah, and she was a short-lived character, one of Alastor's posse again. She got eaten by a Nightbreed, by that Leroy Gom, I think.
Oh, wow.
He ate her. Like, she stabbed his stomach, and then the muscles in his stomach grabbed her arm and kind of pulled her inside of his stomach, and then we never heard from her again.
Just like spaghetti, huh?
Yeah, right.
And then we have Cheddar, too, the one with the eyes, and up against Hunger. And they kind of look similar a little bit, don't they?
Yeah, they do with their mouths.
It's funny, this random pairing of them. You never would have thought of that before, but they do look really similar.
Hunger was super creepy as a Cenobite. He really was. And I think he shows up, the first time he shows up, it's in that story about that guy that had leprosy, right? In the Hellraiser comics. I think that's the first time we see him. He's a really skeletal-looking Cenobite, and I like this guy. This is a very strong one.
He almost looks like his skin has been replaced by leather.
Yes, yeah, that's true, yeah. And then we have our first of the Servants of Hell by Paul Kane. It's actually Paul Kane's art that he did for what he called his remarks on fan books that he signed, right? So this one is Plague. You may remember him from the story.
Yeah. So he's a. I didn't read that far yet. I'm still trying to finish that book. Every time I get started on it, then we have something else we need to read for the podcast, and I have to put it down.
Oh, I read that thing quickly.
Yeah, I did too.
So and he's up against Dreamer from Hellraiser 3, which is probably my least favorite Cenobite of all time.
Yeah, she was never really supposed to be in the movie. I mean, I was listening to those interviews with Gary T, and he was saying, like, even Barbie, they weren't really supposed to be in the movie. The only Cenobites that were supposed to be in the movie were Pinhead, Camera Head, and Piston Head.
Oh,
they were
really?
the only ones that were supposed to be in there.
Oh,
So were they
Okay.
like part of like reshoots or something?
No, they just came up with them on the producers wanted more, Cenobites, so they just, had them go out to like Walmart to get, masks.
Oh, you're
Huh.
kidding.
No, I'm not.
Wow.
but I like this one though. I like Dreamer. I think I like to see a mixing in of beauty and horror like this.
It kind of finishes her character in a good way too.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
those stupid cigarettes on her, that's so irritating to me.
Well,
She had
that's-
cigarette power that she would burn Joey and
Yeah.
annoy her with him.
Oh, that's right.
well, she keeps smoking throughout the whole movie, so that kind of is a little
Kinda fits
payoff
into
there.
her, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have a Charon or Karen.
Yeah, and he's another of Alastor's posse. He's the bird-headed guy with like snakes for hair,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a big axe or a big hammer.
Oh, that's right. He slammed his axe into was it the big fat guy Vasti Moses or something? I forgot. I know that in Jihad he kind of dismembers a bunch of Cenobites with
And
that big axe.
he hits that bison-looking guy with a hammer too. I think.
Right, and he's going up against Winky Dink.
Yeah.
Who's Winky Dink?
He
don't know.
and I think his Hellraiser name is actually Clown, but Winky Dink was his name as a was his name in in human life. He was a clown, but in when he became a Cenobite, he just got named Clown, and I guess his job is entertaining children.
He first appeared, I think, in this kind of like pinup in the Marvel Hellraiser comic books. He's drawn by Mike Mignola.
Oh,
And then I think Mike Mignola also made a story called Dead Things Rot in the
yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, I think that's maybe where he shows up again. So
Okay.
yeah. We'll get back to this because some of these I'm kind of unsure because I have to reread the comic books.
Yeah, and we'll find out.
And let's see. I'm betting that the next one is going to be one of the first to leave. One of the guys with the least votes. I'm betting on him.
Yeah.
We have Pinhead from not Judgement, Revelations.
Oh, that needs to get fixed.
Yeah, the weird looking Pinhead from Revelations. I hate
Can't
this
help but
guy.
laugh every time I see that.
Hate this guy. Didn't think he looked good at all. Just looked weird. And I hope he's one of the first to go. And he's going up against the Puzzle Guardian from Hellraiser 3, who was actually played by Lawrence Mortoff, who was a producer for the movie.
Yeah, and the Puzzle Guardian from Hellraiser 3 isn't really that great either. I mean, he sold like high school art and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
He sells the Pillar of Souls to
JP.
J.P. Monroe.
Yeah, take pleasure in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think he's going to win against nobody. I mean, I think Pinhead from Revelations is pretty much universally reviled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's going to get any votes at all. We'll see.
And
Maybe out there was a listener saying, hey, he did a good job. Why are you guys being so mean about him? Well, here's your chance to vote for him.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Put your votes where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm.
So next up is Atkins, the Armorer of Hell. One of the weirdest characters in the Marvel Hellraiser comics.
He's kind of mouthy. He's always complaining about Hell and Leviathan and stuff like that.
I didn't think that Hell would need an armorer like him, like a guy who has guns and stuff. But hey, here he is. And they called him Atkins.
He's also
What
like
if
a
it's an
medic,
homage to
right?
Peter
'Cause
Atkins?
he heals them when they get hurt.
Oh, he does? Okay.
Yeah, because I think in Jihad he had to heal. Gehenna got his arm broken.
Oh, I
He
see.
had to heal that.
Medic!
Yeah.
And then the next one, I don't know where you keep pulling these guys out of, but this one is Zafan,
Yeah.
and he's from Jihad again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't remember this guy at all, to be honest.
I don't even remember if he lived or died. I mean, he's kind of he's like a little baby faced sort of a little hunchback kind of a guy. He's got nails in his head and a big gigantic nose ring.
I'm noticing that there's kind of like this weird thing about the Cenobites where it's like either they're humanoids with alterations or they're just these weird creatures.
Yeah.
and it's hard to understand what are the rules towards making a Cenobite. Are they all people? Are they creatures? It's strange sometimes. They come up with these little monsters like Isaac. I guess he's a demon. I'm not sure if we would call him a Cenobite. Well, because he has little horns and stuff.
In other art, he looks more like a baby Pinhead.
Yeah, okay.
But this art is a little strange.
Yeah. Well, next up we have Surgeon. I think Surgeon always fascinated me in the sense that he's totally like the makeup. I mean, it's very really extreme. Cool. Yeah, I like that.
In
actuality, all he ever does is kind of just stand there.
True.
Yeah. So
there's never really been a backstory given on him, but I would just say he must have been some kind of doctor or something.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? But going against the Chatter Hellraiser 1, I don't know. They'll probably, I'd give it to Chatter on that one.
I think so.
Me too. Another duo of Cenobites that I don't really recall where they came from, but there's Bright Eyes and The Voice.
Right. And I think their backstory is something about them being like a pop star or pop stars or something. And then, like one of them, and they had these, blue eyes, and one of them got their eyes taken away and the other got their mouth taken away. So together they make one person.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then you have they're going up against Chatter, Torso from Inferno, which interesting because Torso also paired up with a couple of Cenobites in Inferno, and here he is squaring it off against two of them.
Yeah.
Torso for me was always a silly idea as a Cenobite. He's more like a pet.
Yeah.
He was kind of creepy. I thought the first time I saw Inferno, I thought he was pretty creepy coming down the stairs at Aaron Boone like that.
Yeah, I guess. I always feel like the Thorn should just like kick him and stomp him to death because honestly, what is he going to do? Just walk around in his arms and try to bite his ankles?
Yeah, I know.
More like a pet.
Good point.
Right.
Another strange-looking Cenobite from Servants of Hell is the Fist Cenobite.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the weirdest Cenobite I've ever seen.
Yeah. Like he's going to give you the finger or something like that.
He's got a fist for a head.
Yeah, giant fist.
Versus Alastor of the Pseudothay from Jihad. Okay, so versus Alastor. And Alastor is a really grating, irritating character in the Jihad series.
He sure is.
Yeah.
I still need to read those Jihad, to the comics. Great artwork. Who did the artwork for those?
Oh, I forgot the name. Let me see.
It is really good artwork.
Let's see if I could come up with that. Artwork by Paul Johnson. That's the guy who painted the artwork.
Okay.
And written by Chichester, right?
Yeah. So what else do we got?
And then next we got female Cenobite from Hellraiser 1. This is the first time we've split her apart from the Barbie Wilde version of Hellraiser. So this is the
Grace Kirby.
Grace Kirby, version of female Cenobite she's got a little bit the weird kind of wispy hair, and she is different from the Barbie Wilde version.
I think, sorry, Barbie, but I think she looks a little creepier than the Barbie Wilde version. Yeah. I think Barbie Wilde's female Cenobite is too pretty.
It's a sexier version.
And, and
this one is more androgynous. More fragile looking, more tortured, I would say.
And the screenshot that we got from Barbie's version is when she's scared of getting killed, from Shenard.
Yeah.
So that doesn't help either. But she's up against the Auditor from Hellraiser Judgment, which is interesting. I think he is definitely the most interesting character from Hellraiser Judgment.
I thought so too, even more than Paul T. Taylor's Pinhead.
Yeah.
So I'm probably going to give my vote to the Auditor on this one. I'm sorry, Grace Kirby.
Well, I think she'd be happy with it. She's really distanced herself from Hellraiser anyway.
Right. Next up is another Cenobite. This one never really made it to the movies. This guy was originally going to be called Stilt, and then he got to be known as Spike.
Oh.
He basically looks like a big Cenobite with a French baguette stuck through his head.
Is that? Oh, I thought that was like a. I thought that was a. I didn't know it was a baguette.
Well, it's not. It's
Okay.
just a big like wooden spike thing. But
Yeah.
to me, it always looks like a French baguette stuck through his head.
Well, now I can't unsee that.
Yeah, you're welcome. So yeah, this guy was originally going to be called Stilt. He was going to be walking on stilts, and he was going to have like these spikes coming out the back with these bodily fluid bags, and they were going to be going into his like veins and stuff.
Wow.
But then they kind of simplified him, and ultimately they didn't even put him in the movie. I think it was supposed to be in Deader, right?
Yeah.
He just showed up he shows up in the deleted scenes, and it's just really just one quick shot, and I can understand why they cut him out.
Not very interesting.
It is too bad though that they make these Cenobites. They put so much work into them and their costumes, and in a lot of the sequels, all they do is they walk out of a hole in the wall and they stand there.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
At least in Hellseeker, they are a little more active. Like you have Bound and Stitch, and they kind of grab people and they stick these implements in their faces and they turn them around and then they push them in and stuff like that. They do stuff, right? They torture people. That's better. And somehow Hellraiser 7 and 8, they just kind of stand there a little bit.
Yeah.
That kind of makes them less threatening, I think.
Yeah.
More looming.
And he's up against Caesar, which is he's from the Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2, that same story that has Isaac. Caesar was this big, cavernous, sort of mountainous demon that they would throw these blood bags into his mouth. They were like these gigantic tick creatures that would be full of blood, and they would throw them into Caesar's mouth. And it was part of their cleanup process, because the tick things would suck up all the blood, and then they would bring him over to Caesar and feed him to him. And sometimes Caesar would accidentally eat some of these little imp guys, like Isaac.
Oh, well, it's a living.
Yeah.
Don't ask me, I just work here.
Yeah. So Gehenna is this other one from Jihad. She's he is a skeleton stuck to a board, I think.
Right. And he's got this, and he can make this fire on his hand.
Right. So he had a backstory where he tried to save his son from being thrown into the Gehenna pit where they sacrifice kids, I think. And it made a deal of some sort. And I mean, go listen to our episode where we talk about Jihad, because I don't remember all that stuff very well now. But he's going up against the Wire twins from Inferno. Yeah.
And I have to apologize for this this screenshot of them. It's terrible, but if you look online, it's the best you get of.
It's the behind the scenes on the green screen shot that you found. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't particularly like that, but but they're just. I mean, most of the screenshots of them are with their backs to the camera.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're interesting. They're a good pair up with Torso. I hope that they make it through the next round, because I kind of like those. They did the sexy massage, underskin massage to Thorn. So nice characters, I guess.
There's a funny story that Gary T was sharing on a podcast about Craig Sheffer. Like when they were doing that scene where they were like rubbing his underneath his skin. He was telling Gary T, he was like, they're really strange and creepy looking, but for some reason I want to fuck them.
That's funny. That is funny.
Man.
Well, I don't.
He was like, is there something wrong with me? He was asking Gary T that. He was like, I don't know.
Oh God. And then next up, we've got the Searcher, also from that. I mean, apparently, I really like that story, but he is also from that I Just Work Here story from the Hellraiser Anthology Volume 2. So after Frank escaped, they really clamped down on people getting away, and they have these gigantic statue-looking guys called the Searchers, and the demon skeleton, the dragon skeletons scoop up the people trying to escape, and the Searcher throws them into a giant meat grinder.
Oh, I see.
Seems that kind of look. They look like they kind of remind me of that idea. Reminds me of what do you call them? The from X-Men, the thing that searches out the
Sentinels.
Oh, the Sentinels. Yeah.
Yeah, in a way.
They are huge like that. Like they step over all the walls of the labyrinth and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's a really good expansion of the mythology there.
Yeah, it is. I like that.
And
this.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the Searcher is going to pair up with the twins from Bloodline, and although they're kind of classic looking, I don't know. The Searcher looks pretty cool to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And then we've got the Engineer from Hellraiser 1 and from deleted scenes in Hellraiser 2, up against Pinocchio, the Pinocchio story, parody
from Anthology Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah.
I love this character. This character is awesome. I'm totally going to vote for him.
This is a tough matchup, I think, because the Engineer is also a classic Hellraiser character.
Yeah,
like just when you think you understand what's going on in the story, you see that guy and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Chasing Kirsty down with his like bicycle legs.
Yeah, right. And he punches Steve in the face.
Yeah, with a box.
Yeah.
And he screeches a lot near the end as well.
Yeah.
Looks like someone's killing a pig.
Right.
Next one, I didn't like this character at all when he came out in the comics. I thought, what are they doing? And then
I don't like that. That's the first time I've ever seen that.
I know they turned Harry the Moor into Pinhead after they did it with Kirsty in the Boom Studios comic books, and I was just like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" But does he ever revert back to Harry the Moor form? Ryan,
I think he does. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, but the Pinhead thing became more like this jacket that people could just put on and off.
Yeah,
it's like
right.
I was like, and then they didn't really change the characters. They just looked like Pinhead. They had pins in their face, but they talked the same.
They had their same old motivations that they had before. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen, for that
I think so,
Boom
too.
Hellraiser series.
Yeah, that's really looks cheesy.
So this is when Harry the Moor was Pinhead for a while in the Boom Studios comic books, and for some reason he has this big like monocle thing on his eye.
Because he's a detective.
Yeah. Oh wow. Really?
Like Sherlock
really.
Holmes. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not super deep.
Yeah.
Right. Squaring it off with the Puzzle Guardian skeletal thing from Hellraiser 1.
Yeah.
Which is a cool character. I think they pieced it up as kind of an afterthought almost, right? Rob, did you?
Yeah, it was.
They found something and they were like, let's put this in the movie. So.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, some weird little story like that creates something in the mythology that will be there forever. For
sure. So honestly, I think I'm going to give this one to Puzzle Guardian because I just like the skeletal thing, and that he became a part of the Hellraiser mythology and the Hellraiser comics and all that. So there you go. And then the next one is another Judgement. Oh, you have to fix this one because it seems like you do have.
I think we need to fix the earlier one. So I think the text was right and the picture was wrong. That's what
you have to put Paul T. Taylor's picture up there, and this one stays how it is. Yeah. So the jury from Judgment is going to square off versus Pinhead from Revelations.
Yeah. So all the comments that we said about Revelations Pinhead is for this one. Actually, we don't. This is the one we don't like. Paul T. Taylor's one. I think he did pretty good.
I do too.
Yeah.
So let's see how this is a battle of the underdogs here because they're two kind of. I don't know about the jury. The jury to me was kind of like they could have been different in Judgment. They could have been a little more gritty looking. Yeah. They just looked like three naked girls with facial makeups, but their bodies looked pretty normal, and they had like these just. Underwear on, and it's like maybe you guys should have thought about something else for costume. I don't know, but so we'll see what happens here between sliced ham Pinhead versus the jury from Judgment.
You can't do negative votes, so maybe these two won't get much votes at all, but well, I don't know which one's gonna. Probably the jury will still win against Revelations Pinhead.
And are you ready for your close-up, Joey? Next is Camerahead.
Yeah. God.
Versus the Puzzle Guardian from Revelations.
No.
I forgot there was a Puzzle Guardian in that, wasn't there?
Yeah, he was annoying. And
was he in Tijuana or something? He shows up in a bar.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, he gives them the box, and he shows up at their house, and he cuts the skin off of one guy.
Yeah. So again, just a desperate attempt to make Revelations seem like, oh, we're in touch with the original story. Here's like a puzzle guardian. It just looks like a guy with a dirty face and a bad wig.
Yeah, I know that didn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's like, God, he didn't even have to be in that movie.
No.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, you guys are in a bar in Tijuana, and then this guy's inside a bar with like people dressed up, and somehow they let this bum come into the bar, and it's like, doesn't make any sense. Anyway. So, Camerahead, as much as I think this guy's silly looking, I think this guy's going to take the tickets.
Yeah,
so.
Right. I kind of hope so, because I don't want. I mean, he's still classic Hellraiser versus terrible Hellraiser. So.
Yeah. Another character from Servants of Hell is Madame Veronique, and she's going to square off against Bound 2 from Hellworld, because Bound originally was a female Cenobite. And then they, for some reason, turned him into a male version. Yeah, in Hellworld. Yeah. He just shows up at the end, really. You know, when Lance Henriksen is trying to wake up, and Pinhead shows up with Cheddar and Bound, and they kind of slice them up, and that's the end of it.
You're right, with those gigantic like sickles on chains.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, versus Madame Veronique from Servants, like you said, and I don't know. I think maybe
I can't remember.
Will win.
I can't remember what she did in that book though. It was she did some pretty nasty stuff in that the Servants from Hell. She had some nasty kind of like ways about her. Mm-hmm. How she I can't remember though. But anyway, yeah, I don't know. That'll be interesting to see how that one goes down.
Yeah.
And then,
how many people know about her?
Rob, you remember you found this video from Kevin Yeager's YouTube channel, I think?
Yeah.
About the Chatterbeast, to like how they made it. Was it like a guy in a suit?
Yeah, it was a woman.
There you go.
In a suit, yeah.
Yeah, running around that back lot.
Yeah.
As in like on hands and feet, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the Chatterbeast is going to square off with female Cenobite from Hellraiser 2, played by Barbie Wilde.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think that's a tough one. They're both good characters.
Design-wise, I really think the Chatterbeast is more interesting looking, and I wish we had seen more stuff like this in the Hellraiser films, like more creatures like the Chatterbeast.
Yeah.
He's really cool looking. I want to know, is that a human that's been changed so much that he now looks like a dog? Is that like an animal that got tortured into becoming this? I want to know what this is from,
Or like a hellhound that they turned into a Cenobite.
Right. Yeah, something like that.
Peter Atkins was talking about during the production, he described it as like someone that got hit by a car and they put it back together.
Oh, wow.
Something like that.
That's cool. That is a cool description of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And next up, we have the Butcher from Judgement, which I thought was an interesting character. Some people said it was stereotypical, but the Butcher, the big guy with the apron and the baby face mask,
reminds me a little bit of the guy from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
Versus
he comes out with that big pig splitter, kind of like, and just throws it into the, jams it into the table. He doesn't really do anything except, he seems to be more of a servant or not a servant, but he is the surgeon. He's more of a...
Yeah, he piggybacks the surgeon around.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Seems to be his job.
Yeah, I really like that scene when he when that like jacket opens up and the surgeon jumps out in slow motion. I thought that was kind of really cool. Stylistic and cool looking.
I thought so too. It's a good shot. I liked it. Yeah, makes it seem like they have this kind of symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Exactly.
So he's going to square off against J.P. Monroe's character Pistonhead.
Yeah.
And he's so hammy in this movie.
Baby.
Yes.
It's better than sex.
Yeah. Oh God.
Jeez.
Yeah, this is why Pinheads or why Cenobites mostly don't talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Next up is Stitch. Stitch was an interesting design. I really like Stitch and Bound because of the way they made the sculpt. The sculpt is just amazing. Like it looks like the skin's been stretched out and stapled in opposing directions and a zigzag thing, and it's very, very cool. I like Stitch. I wish we had seen more of Stitch.
Stitch is going up against Leviathan, and I think that Leviathan's going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably by a large margin.
Yeah.
Because people are, they like Leviathan. They like the fact that he's the god of hell.
Yeah, and that he's Hellraiser. It's Hellraiser 2, and Leviathan in the movies never came back again. I mean, we've talked about this before. What a shame that was that they had all of that to work with, and people just kind of let it go.
Oh well.
Yeah.
That's Hellraiser 5 kind of started over again and didn't really go back to any of the classic stuff. So it's a shame. And then we have Abigor versus Pseudo Pinhead, if that's his real name.
Yeah, he's also called like Pinhead Jr., but I think that might just be a nickname. Yeah.
Right. It looks like a guy who stapled American cheese slices to his head.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Well, I think that's not far from the truth, right? Because in the movie, those were little squares of skin that he was nailing onto his head.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to make of this character. He's just so lame. It's such a horrible mess of a character. There's no reason why you guys should have created this character in the first place. I just don't see the point.
Yeah,
really.
I think Abigor is Abigor. Comic fans really like Abigor. I mean, it might be a little more obscure than stupid Pseudo Pinhead, but I'm gonna be voting for her.
Okay, there you go. And then we have a character who's better designed than the Pseudo Pinhead, which is Glass from Servants of Hell, which is a character who, instead of having bejeweled pins or pins on his head, he has shards of glass.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what this would have looked like in special effects makeup. That would have been something to see. Yeah. The way the light would glint off of those shards of glass would probably make it really cool.
I thought, that was a cool twist on the Pinhead because it was, Paul Kane was obviously doing his own versions of a little twist on all, the original group.
Of course.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool to do Glass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's going to square off against Butterball.
Yeah.
From Hellraiser 1 and 2.
And if Laurie Bichet, right? If she catches wind of this, I think that Butterball's going to win by a landslide.
Oh yeah. She's a big Simon Bamford fan, and she has the Simon Bamford fan page, and she's going to cosplay as all the characters from all the movies Simon Bamford's been in.
Yes.
Which is like a huge amount of work that she's been doing to cosplay all those characters. So, yeah, you can vote every 5 minutes, Lori. So go ahead and make sure Butterball makes it to the final round.
Right. I mean, that's really Simon's only representation in this whole 64 character thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And then this Cheddar 4 from Revelations. Again, another Cheddar themed Cenobite. It seems like the Cheddar theme has always been present in most of the movies.
Yeah, they just have to figure out some new way to represent.
This was the first female version of it, right?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, like the hand, the face looks great, but then the arms, they look like they didn't even have time to do the arms.
Well,
the arms just look like normal arms, and
right.
it's not even the same skin tone
like
as the
somebody
face.
wearing like a sleeveless dress.
Yeah.
Did you know for that movie, for the Pinhead costume, they had to buy a cosplay costume?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, no.
They had no money for anything on that movie.
I was listening to David's podcast, the
Cinema Bluster.
Cinema Bluster, yeah, and they did their episode on Hellraiser Judgment. He was saying that they used a Nika puzzle box.
Oh my God!
I mean, I don't know where he'd heard that. He didn't mention it with us, but I was curious.
For Revelations?
Yeah, or no, for Judgment, that they had used a Nika puzzle box.
No, that's not right.
Yeah, it doesn't look like one. No.
And I've owned one of those, and nobody would ever want to touch them because that
I mean,
Brass
maybe
flakes
one
off
of
and
those.
stabs into your skin like slivers.
I mean, maybe one of those that's on the mantelpiece in the auditor room. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that could be one of the maybe one of those, but not the one he was actually holding.
no, that's a hero piece. Yeah, that's a.
Yeah.
Gary Tunnicliffe probably has a ton of those boxes, so he could use those.
Yeah.
So yeah, is that it? Is that the last matchup that we have?
Yeah, versus Orno. We didn't really talk about Orno, I guess. I don't really know much about him. I know he's some kind of like hell general or something, maybe.
Right. Wasn't he? Oh man, it's been a while since I've read about this, but I think wasn't he trying to come up with like human Cenobite hybrids or something? I forgot exactly what he does, but we'll get to that in our Marvel Comics episodes in the future. So
yeah. So,
he looks cool though. He looks like a cool Cenobite with the things going up around the side of his face, those circular like metal things, and then they're pulling his face out, and looks pretty cool.
Well, and by the time this airs, I'll have fixed that mistake with with having two. We don't need two Revelations Pinheads in here.
So when does round 3 voting start, Ryan?
Voting will start actually. If you're listening to this podcast, it will be started Sunday at 8:00, the same time that the podcast airs.
There you go.
Yeah, so people won't see those mistakes unless they go before the record, during the recording of this, but yeah, so there will be a Paul T. Taylor version of Pinhead versus who was that?
We'll have to let him know about that. I think Paul T. Taylor would like.
Versus the Puzzle Guardian from Hellraiser 3. So that's going to be the Judgement Pinhead, not the Revelations one, versus the Puzzle Guardian from Hellraiser 3.
That sounds good.
The high school.
So look at that. We got 64 characters here. And we included some cool ones from like Paul Kane's Servants of Hell, from the Boom Studios comics, from the Marvel comics, from Jihad, all the movies.
Hellraiser anthology.
Oh geez, yeah.
Yeah. It was hard work, but we did it. So let's see if people can vote on this and let the fun begin. No flesh shall be spared.
Yeah. Yes. A fight.
I saw that on the one note.
Yeah.
I'll let you say that.
A line from Chenard, and it's not so much a fight as it is a massacre, really.
Yeah. Unfortunately. That was my least favorite part of Hellbound.
Yeah.
It was kind of sad to see. But on the site, if we did an audio commentary for Sleepwalkers, and that was a lot of fun to do. We had even gotten retweeted by Mick Garris.
We did? Cool.
We did? Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if he listened to it or not. I mean, I think I was a little hard on that movie. But,
Cop kebab.
Yeah.
It's cool because I tagged him on it, so I'm sure that he saw something about it. So yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, we would love to be able to talk to Mick Garris sometime in the future if he wants to.
Yeah, definitely. That would be
about the Mummy project and maybe the In the Flesh project.
Yeah, that would be great.
That we're working on.
That's a really good idea. I mean, I think maybe after we get done with all of our interviews that we're doing in Texas, we'll see if we can maybe set that up. That'd
be cool.
And, and I wanted to check, Jose, have you downloaded the app? I wanted to see if the new version is in there, is out yet.
I have not. I have not, but I'll do that, and I'll check the new app and see how it works. I think I still have the old app. I'm not sure if it updated. I was having some space problems in my phone, so I have to try that.
And I talked to them. I talked to the developers about it. I'm like, hey, I know the iTunes version is updated. What about the Android one? They're like, oh, that's it. That we just submitted that. So, and cool. I don't think they have as rigorous of a quality control as Apple does. So I would imagine it's probably updated now. So that means you can do commenting right there in the app. And if you're not a podcast person, it's a good way to listen to the podcast, and you can comment with the, comment. You can tell us what you think and make comments and questions and stuff right there in the app, and it logs you in with your Facebook login.
Yeah, so make sure you download it today and listen to our episodes, and you can bookmark it. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with it. You can even use it for an alarm clock.
Right. And you can call my cell phone with it, apparently.
The first year that we did this, right? And
Sorry,
okay.
I'm checking the app.
Oh, did it auto? So, do you have the Android one?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, can you comment on there's a little like speech bubble when you tap on that, then it opens it up for comments on the.
That's
episodes.
that's what I was checking to see.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay. Yes. Well, we'll let us know if you've got the version that can if you're out there listening and you've got the version that can do comments. Post a comment on this episode. Okay. Well, in this podcast having no beginning will have no end. Find the show notes for this episode and join the discussion over at www.clivebarkercast.com, where we have news and links to all the ways you can connect with us. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and every other place you can find podcasts. The Clive Barker Podcast is an independent editorial podcast and news blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.